Hey there! A really critical part of writing any kind of essay that I think is often overlooked or rushed is the editing process. Now, it can be really tricky after working for hours, days, weeks on an essay to then have to reread it multiple times and, God forbid, actually make any changes. Especially if you don't actually know what it is you're looking for, this can just be another strenuous activity that doesn't really get you anywhere. So that is what I'm here for. I'm going to be giving you some helpful tips and things to look out for when editing your essay so that it can be the best that it can be. Firstly, I'm just going to give you a couple tips on making the proofreading process itself a bit more efficient and, I think more importantly, less boring. My first point is maybe try using the read aloud function that you can use on Word. This is so helpful. It helps, for one, offloading some of the work so that you are not reading again and again and losing your mind. But also, when you hear someone else or something else reading out your work, it helps so much more in pinpointing any grammatical or structural errors in your writing that when you're reading in your head, you'll probably miss out or just skim over without noticing. So this can be a really helpful way just to make the proofreading process a little less dull. Or what I actually really like doing is pretending that your essay is not yours, it's someone else's, and that you are a peer review marker. Now, I noticed when doing peer review last term that I was reading and noticing a lot of errors in someone's essay that then I thought, I probably made this error in my own essay, and I didn't notice until reading someone else's work and taking that more objective standpoint. And so doing that with your own work can really help. From there, I like to read out loud as if I'm giving a presentation just to make it a bit more fun, but use the comment function, bring up the mark scheme, and write down any issues you see at any point so that then you don't have to do all that editing in one go. But you have those comments there on your document you can then go back to the following day and edit in your own time. Also, just a final point, because I feel like this is always worth mentioning, try not to use any abbreviations like don't, won't, shouldn't. Wherever it can be extended to its full form, like do not, please do this. It just makes your essay sound way more professional and cleaner, and if you need it, it will also boost your word count a little bit. Now, for the most important part of this video, I'm going to give you 5 questions to keep in the back of your mind when you're reading through your essay. This is going to be helpful for you so you know what you're looking out for, so you're asking the right questions and making the right changes. Is this point that you are reading relevant to your essay topic? This can be very subjective, so really make sure that you are getting up the mark scheme or the assessment brief you've been given. It's even handier if your essay topic is actually a question. You can ask yourself, okay, is this point answering this question? Ask this for every point you make, every argument, every beginning of your paragraph. Every paragraph that you write should have its own almost mini thesis at the top of it and a little almost conclusion for the bottom before it segues into your next paragraph. So for each paragraph you should be asking, okay, is this thesis relating back to the main thesis of my essay? And is this true for all the arguments and evidence I'm also providing? If you knew nothing about the essay topic that you're reading, would this essay be explaining it properly? Now, this is something I think I struggled with a lot. I always used to just take the assumption, well, I know what I'm talking about, and I know my lecturer will know what I'm talking about, so I don't need to explain it anymore. You do. Because no matter who your audience is supposed to be, always assume that they are not an expert in your topic. Your teacher will do this on purpose because they want to make sure you understand what you're talking about, instead of just assuming the audience already knows. You want to demonstrate a high level of understanding to the point where you can explain something in a scientific way, but also in layman's terms. So look out for any sort of underdeveloped points that you think could benefit from an extra sentence just to articulate truly what you're trying to say, and any sort of technical jargon that you mention that hasn't really been defined at all. Remember, just because something seems obvious to you does not mean it's obvious to everyone else. I will give you an example. When I'm reviewing a study about psychopaths and empathy, I have the sentence, The current study aims to focus on a third, less researched model, suggesting that increased instrumental aggression in psychopaths is the main reason behind a reduced ability to affect share with others. The sentence is kind of good, but we're not too sure what instrumental aggression is. We know what aggression is, but instrumental aggression is more of a technical term. Not only do I not define it, but I don't really explain its relevance to empathy. So from here, I can just add another sentence in after this, saying, this type of aggression is premeditated and goal-orientated, and so emotions that discourage this are suppressed, such as empathy. So you can see just in one sentence, not only have I defined and shown I understand what instrumental aggression is, but I have justified its relevance here. A way you can test this if you're not sure if you need to define something is to ask a friend or a family member who is not doing your course whether they would know what this means. This is something, again, I had to ask myself a lot. Could this sentence have been written more concisely? We've all seen those memes of people rambling and saying everything but also nothing with the caption, me trying to up my word count. It's a good joke, but don't let that be you. Don't let your sentence structure and quality suffer just to increase your word count. It doesn't matter how close you are to that word count, if your sentences are all rambly and full of nothing, you will get marked down. It's quality over quantity. So this is kind of sentence and context dependent. Sentences may be rambly or waffly for different reasons. I'll just give you an example of one and how you can probably tell that it needs editing. Parents who may not ever want to donate their children's organs may still pretend that they would do so in order to appear more morally conscious, which would lead to skewed data. This is a long sentence for one. It also makes you kind of out of breath as you're reading it, and it's a little difficult to read in of itself. This is why I recommend reading your essays out loud, because you can realise that if you're struggling to read a sentence, it's probably not a good sentence. You want to edit it to make sure you're still making that same point, but getting rid of all that waffle. So an edited version may be, parents who may never want to donate their children's organs may still imply the opposite to appear more morally conscious, leading to skewed data. This sentence sounds a lot better, but it's still making the same point. I haven't lost any of that, but I have lost all of the unnecessary stuff. The next thing I always want you to keep in the back of your mind is to always back up everything you say with evidence. Any claim or argument you make should have some sort of research behind it or something you can use to justify why that's true. You can't just get away with pulling arguments out of thin air. It doesn't matter how good they are. Your lecturer's gonna question how you came up with that and why you are so sure that that's true. Well, this is somewhat course dependent. I can't speak for every course and what they expect from you, but at least for me, studying psychology, everything I use is peer-reviewed scientific literature. The only time I would ever touch a website is if it's a government one and I'm trying to find a statistic. Something to remember is if it does not have a DOI, then goodbye. Which means if it's not an academic journal, then you don't want to use it. An exception to this would be something like English literature, but you're still going to use quotes and paraphrasing parts of the book to support your points. So the main point here is that you need to justify, one, that you have a reason to believe what you do, but this can also be a good way to demonstrate independent research. For example, if I'm talking about emotional anchoring that was likely utilised to induce an emotional response, it's important to suggest how I know this. So I can add an extra sentence saying, as proposed by Joff 2008, emotions can be harnessed to influence decision making, in this case on paediatric organ donation. Again, it's just one extra sentence, it's not going to boost your word count way over the limit, but it's going to really help show your lecturer or marker that you know what you're talking about, you have evidence to back it up, and you actually found the evidence on your own and cited it correctly. So have you demonstrated independent critical thinking? This was something that was discussed on the introduction to our third year at uni, which was that it's not enough to get into the highest tier or even the second highest tier of marks. if you just represent all the arguments and points that your lecturer has given you throughout the year. It doesn't matter how well you understand all the content you've been given if you don't bring anything new to the table. You need to present your own arguments and analysis and show that you've had that independent thinking and research. This must be somewhat course specific, but I think for the most part, most things aren't set in stone with a right and wrong answer. There is some room for argument. As long as you can support those arguments with research and reliable justification, you're going to be applauded and rewarded for showing novel ideas and thoughts. Showing that not only do you understand everything you've been taught over the year, but actually you've gone that step further and thought of a separate thing and how that may actually be the right path. So just make sure whenever you can that you're bringing in some sort of critical thinking or analysis. For example, whenever I mention a study, I don't want to just regurgitate any of the limitations that study has said, but also think of my own limitations. For example, when talking about a study that looks at views on organ donation in medical students, I've added, however, there may be a certain level of pressure for medical students to be in favour of organ donation, which may override their personal opinions when partaking in scientific research. This is me demonstrating that, yeah, this study is reliable, but it's a question of how reliable it may be because of the certain sample they used. I hope those made sense, and I hope you can see them actually working the next time you're proofreading an essay. Please let me know if it would actually be more beneficial to see me fully do an editing process on an example essay for you. I tried to give in a few examples, but I hope that is enough for you for now. As we're coming into a new year, I really hope this can help you boost your essay writing as well as editing. I definitely found that over time, these questions I ask myself when proofreading then transferred into questions I kept in mind throughout the whole writing process. So that by the time you get to editing, you may notice, actually, I've already done this all. You'll see this improvement, but don't worry about it coming straight away. For me, it definitely took several years to find that my sentences were less rambly from the get-go. If they're still rambly by the end result, don't worry, that is what editing is for. I hope this new year is filled with better study techniques and even better grades. Thanks for watching, and as usual, happy studying.